The city learned their names long before it learned their pain. It learned them in the quiet ways, on the backs of cafe receipts, in the margins of library books, etched into the wet fog of bus stop glass. Cairo Vance and Amara Quinn were not famous. They were simply unforgettable. They met in a city that never paused for tenderness, and somehow, against the clang of trains and the rush of borrowed time, they taught each other how to breathe again. Before we go deeper into this story, please like, comment, and subscribe and where they are watching from. Your support helps these stories travel farther than we ever could alone. Cairo first noticed Amara on a rainy afternoon that smelled like rust and oranges. She stood beneath the awning of a closed bookstore, hair pulled back with a ribbon that had seen better days, her eyes tracing the spines of memories through the dusty window. Cairo had been running late, again, coat unbuttoned, thoughts tangled in deadlines and half-finished promises. He might have passed her if she hadn't laughed. Not a loud laugh, but a soft one, like a secret shared with the rain. It stopped him mid-stride. He turned, startled by how something so gentle could sound like a rescue. "Do you read?" she asked, catching him staring. Her voice was warm, amused rather than offended. "I try," Cairo replied, honesty slipping out before charm could step in. "Mostly manuals. They never ask me how I'm feeling." She smiled, the rain reflecting in her eyes. "That's the problem with manuals. They don't bleed." He didn't know why he told her his name. He didn't know why she told him hers. They spoke as if they'd already decided to remember this moment, as if it had been marked in advance. When the rain eased, they didn't exchange numbers. They simply nodded, an agreement that felt like trust. They met again 2 days later at the same place, then again the week after that, as if the city had placed them on intersecting rails. Cairo learned that Amara sketched old buildings because she believed they carried the ghosts of conversations. Amara learned that Cairo fixed broken things because he was afraid of being broken himself. They shared coffee when they could afford it and silence when words felt too heavy. It was an easy love before it was love, curious, careful, alive. Amara lived with her brother Daniel in a narrow apartment where the walls remembered arguments. Daniel was older by 5 years and carried responsibility like a bruise. He worked 2 jobs, worried too much, and trusted too little. When Amara mentioned Cairo, Daniel's jaw tightened. "Be careful," he said, which was his way of saying don't disappear like everyone else. Cairo lived alone in a studio with windows that faced a brick wall. He told his mother, Vivian, about Amara over the phone. Vivian listened quietly, then asked too many questions. "Does she know where you come from?" she asked. Cairo didn't answer. There were truths he kept folded away, sharp-edged and dangerous. They fell in love without announcing it. Love arrived disguised as habit, waiting at the corner, sharing an umbrella, remembering each other's favorite silences. Cairo brought Amara a book he'd found at a thrift store, pages underlined by strangers. "Read the margins," he said. "That's where people confess." She kissed him then, soft and sure, like she had always known where her mouth belonged. But the city has a way of testing joy. Marcus Hale returned like a storm that refuses to check the forecast. He had been Cairo's best friend once, the kind that shared cigarettes and secrets. They'd grown apart after a deal went wrong, money lost, trust shattered. Marcus had left town with bitterness in his pockets and a promise to return better. He came back sharper, richer, and hungry. Marcus recognized Amara before Cairo realized the danger. He watched the way she smiled at Cairo, the way Cairo leaned toward her, as if pulled by gravity. Marcus's gaze lingered, calculating. "She's good," he said later, when Cairo introduced them at a bar that smelled like regret. "She looks like she believes in things." Cairo shrugged it off, unease flickering like a faulty light. "Don't start." "I'm just saying," Marcus replied. "Belief makes people careless." The first crack appeared quietly. A missed call. A rumor that drifted back with no source. Daniel came home one night with worry etched deep. "I heard something," he told Amara. "About Cairo. About money." Amara defended him instinctively. "He's honest," she said, though a small doubt tapped at the door. Daniel sighed, tired. Honest men don't collect enemies. Cairo, for his part, sensed the shift. Amara's laughter faltered. Her questions grew careful. He wanted to explain everything, where he came from, what he'd done to survive, but fear whispered that confession would end them. So he chose silence, and silence chose consequences. Vivian called, voice thin with urgency. "Marcus is back," she said. "You need to stay away from him." "I can handle Marcus," Cairo replied too quickly. "You couldn't before," she said. People don't change. They just learn better tricks. Marcus offered Cairo a job that glittered. Fast money. Clean paperwork. You're talented, Marcus said. Don't waste it fixing broken clocks. Cairo refused. Marcus smiled anyway. Suit yourself. But when people start asking questions, don't say I didn't warn you. The questions did come. From Daniel. From neighbors. From a stranger who waited too long outside Amara's building. Cairo noticed, too late, the way the city leaned in. He tried to pull Amara closer, but she was already stepping back, confusion fighting affection. Just tell me, she said one night, rain returning like a bad habit. Tell me what I'm supposed to be afraid of. Cairo opened his mouth and closed it again. He reached for her hand instead. She let him, but the space between them had learned a new language. Marcus made his move with precision. He planted evidence where it would be found, whispered to those who loved to repeat stories. He painted Cairo as a man running from debts, from deals soaked in consequence. Daniel confronted Cairo in the hallway, words sharp. If you hurt her. I won't, Cairo said. I love her. Love doesn't erase risk, Daniel replied. Stay away until this clears. Amara stood between them, torn. She wanted to believe Cairo. She wanted the city to be kinder than it was. She asked for time. Cairo agreed, though time felt like a sentence. They met less often. When they did, the joy fought uphill. Still, there were moments, shared fries, a song drifting from a passing car, that reminded them of who they were together. Cairo planned to tell her everything. He rehearsed the truth like a prayer. The night he decided to confess, the city decided otherwise. Sirens cut through the air as Cairo crossed the street toward Amara's building. A car jumped the light. The world tilted. He woke to fluorescent hum and pain stitched into his bones. The doctor spoke in measured tones. Broken ribs. A fractured wrist. You're lucky, she said, not knowing how heavy luck can feel. Amara arrived breathless, eyes wide with fear. She took his unbroken hand and cried. In that small hospital room, surrounded by the quiet of survival, Cairo told her the beginning. Not the end. He spoke of Marcus, of old mistakes, of wanting better. He stopped short of the worst truths, the ones that would paint him beyond repair. I believe you, Amara said, because love makes promises it doesn't understand. But belief has a price. Marcus visited later, all concern and sharp smiles. Accidents happen, he said. Especially when people won't listen. Cairo felt the threat settle like dust. When Cairo was discharged, he found a note slipped under his door. A warning without a signature. Stay away, or she pays. He burned it, then called Amara to meet him somewhere public, somewhere safe. She didn't answer. Daniel did. She's scared, he said. Give her space. The space grew teeth. Marcus filled it with lies polished to shine. He showed Amara half-truths, receipts stripped of context, faces that nodded along. He told her Cairo was dangerous in ways love couldn't fix. Amara's heart split the difference, bleeding quietly. They argued for the first time by the river, words sharp with fear. Why won't you tell me everything? She asked. Because I'm trying to protect you, Cairo said. By lying? She replied, tears bright. That's not protection. He reached for her. She stepped back. The river kept moving, indifferent. That night, Amara packed a small bag and stayed with a friend. Cairo watched his phone, waiting for forgiveness to learn his address. Marcus watched too, satisfied. By morning, the city had chosen a direction. Cairo stood alone in his studio, truth heavy on his tongue, and realized that loving Amara had taught him how much he could lose. Outside, the rain returned, patient and unkind. The rain did not stop after that night. It thinned, softened, and pretended to leave, but it always returned, tapping at windows like a reminder that some things do not unlearn their habits. Cairo woke to the sound of it and the weight of absence. Amara's absence lived in the room like a missing wall. Everything echoed differently. He tried to be patient. He told himself patience was another word for love. He sent one message and then none. He went to work with his wrist wrapped and his ribs aching, fixing what other people had given up on. Each tick of a repaired clock felt like a dare to time. He replayed the river argument until it wore a groove in his mind, each word sharpened by regret. Amara stayed with her friend Lila, whose apartment smelled like incense and late nights. Lila was kind but observant. She asked questions that Amara could not yet answer. Amara sketched to quiet her hands, drawing the city's old buildings the way she always had. Windows like eyes, doors like mouths that wanted to speak. In every drawing, There was a crack she hadn't intended. It unsettled her. Daniel checked in often, his concern a tight knot. "You don't owe anyone your peace," he said. Amara nodded, grateful and resentful all at once. She wanted peace, but she wanted Cairo too. Those wants had begun to argue. Marcus moved carefully, like a man arranging a chessboard he'd memorized. He called Amara once and apologized for being blunt. He asked to meet in public. She agreed, because she believed in fairness and because curiosity had teeth. They sat at a cafe where people pretended not to listen. Marcus spoke gently about past mistakes, about men who wanted out but didn't know how to leave clean. He showed her documents that looked official enough to hurt. He never said Cairo's name like an accusation. He said it like a concern. "You deserve safety," Marcus said. "Love shouldn't feel like a risk." Amara went home and cried into a pillow she borrowed. She told herself she was crying because she missed Cairo. That was true, but not complete. Cairo tried to see Daniel, tried to clear the air. Daniel met him at the door with a careful distance. "I don't hate you," Daniel said. "But I won't gamble with my sister." "I'll tell her everything," Cairo said. "I just need time." "Time is what you don't have," Daniel replied, weary. "People are talking." The talking reached places Cairo hadn't expected. A client pulled a job. A neighbor stopped returning greetings. Fear learned his routine and waited. One evening, as he walked home, a car slowed beside him. A window cracked. A voice he didn't recognize said, "You should listen when you're warned." The car rolled on. Cairo stood shaking, rage and terror trading places. He went to Vivian's apartment, the one with the good light and the locked drawers. She poured tea and told him truths she had hidden too long. About debts inherited, about Marcus's leverage, about a choice she'd made years ago that still demanded interest. Cairo felt the ground rearrange itself beneath his feet. "You should have told me," he said. "I wanted you free," Vivian replied. "I thought if you didn't know, it couldn't find you." It had found him anyway. Amara tried to call Cairo that night. It rang and rang. He was with Vivian, phone forgotten on the table as he learned the full shape of the danger. When he finally saw the missed calls, relief tangled with dread. He called back. It went to voicemail. The city liked symmetry. They met the next day at the bookstore awning where it had begun. The place was boarded now, its windows blind. Amara looked thinner, older. Cairo looked like a man carrying a storm. "I'm sorry," Amara said, first and small. "So am I," Cairo replied. The apologies circled, unsure where to land. He told her more this time, enough to bruise, not enough to break. He spoke of Marcus's pressure, of his mother's mistake, of the car that slowed beside him. He did not tell her the part where her name had been used like a lever. He watched her face, reading fear and love like a language he knew too well. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked. "Because I was afraid you'd leave," he said, honest at last. She nodded, tears gathering. "You don't get to decide that alone." They held hands, tentative, as if the touch itself could shatter. "I want to try," Amara said. "But I need truth. All of it. Soon," Cairo promised, hating the word. Marcus learned of the meeting within hours. He smiled and adjusted his plan. He visited Daniel with a practiced sincerity, offered protection disguised as advice. "Your sister's involved with dangerous people," he said. "I'm trying to help." Daniel listened, his trusted door already cracked. That evening, Amara returned to her apartment to pack more clothes. Daniel hovered, worried. A knock came. When Daniel opened the door, two men stood there, polite and heavy. They asked for Cairo. Daniel said he didn't know where he was. The men thanked him and left a card. Amara's heart dropped into her feet. She called Cairo, breathless. "They were here." "I know," Cairo said. He had found a note taped to his door, this one explicit. "I'm coming to get you." "No," Amara said. "Don't. I won't let them scare you." "They already have," she whispered. "Please." They compromised badly. They agreed to meet at Father Gabriel's church, neutral ground where bells kept watch. The church smelled like wax and old prayers. Father Gabriel listened with a face carved by years of bearing witness. "Love asks for courage," he said. "Wisdom asks for distance." Marcus arrived late, uninvited, his presence a chill. "I heard there was trouble," he said, eyes on Amara. "I can make this go away." Cairo stood. "You did this." Marcus shrugged. "I offered you a way out." Amara looked between them, the truth clicking into a shape she didn't like. "My name," she said softly. "You used my name." Marcus didn't deny it. Silence was his answer. The confrontation did not explode, it imploded. Marcus left with a promise disguised as mercy. Father Gabriel urged caution. Daniel urged distance. Amara urged honesty. Cairo urged time. None of it fit together. That night, Cairo finally told Amara the rest, the debt, the leverage, the threats that had spoken her name. She went very still. "You were protecting me," she said. "It wasn't a question." "I thought I was," he replied. She didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She simply said, "I need air." Days passed like borrowed coins. Cairo moved through them alert and exhausted. He changed routes, slept in snatches, kept his phone close. Amara stayed away, trying to decide if love could survive proximity to harm. She missed him with a physical ache. She feared him with a reason she could name. Marcus escalated. A package arrived at Amara's friend's apartment. Photos taken too close, too often. A message followed, "End it. Or it ends for you." Amara's hands shook. She called Daniel. Daniel called the police. The police listened and shrugged. "No direct threat," they said. "Be careful." Careful felt like a joke. Amara went to Cairo's studio at dawn. He opened the door with relief and dread braided tight. She showed him the package. He felt the room tilt. "I'm done running," he said. "I'll go to Marcus. I'll end this." "No," she said, fierce. "You won't." They argued, voices low and desperate. Love sharpened into something dangerous. Finally, Amara said the words she had been rehearsing. "I can't be the reason you get hurt. Or worse." He heard the ending before she spoke it. "Are you leaving?" "I'm choosing space," she said, which sounded like mercy and felt like a cut. She kissed him goodbye with a tenderness that broke him. When she left, Cairo sank to the floor and let the grief teach him new names. Marcus called that afternoon. "Smart girl," he said. "Now do the smart thing." Cairo hung up and made a plan that did not include smart. He went to Father Gabriel, then to Vivian, then to Daniel. He put pieces where they might matter later. He wrote Amara a letter and did not send it. He walked the city one last time like a man memorizing a face. The river waited, patient and indifferent. The city held its breath. Morning came quietly, as if the city had agreed not to interfere. Cairo woke before the alarm, already dressed, already decided. There are moments when fear leaves, not because danger is gone, but because purpose arrives. This was one of those moments. He washed his face, studied his reflection, and barely recognized the man staring back. Love had aged him. Choice had steadied him. He left the letter on the table anyway. And signed. Unscented. A confession folded so carefully it looked like an apology. If Amara ever found it, he hoped it would feel like truth instead of blame. Marcus chose the place. An abandoned warehouse near the docks where the river widened and swallowed secrets. Cairo arrived early, hands empty, heart heavy. The air smelled of oil and old rain. He stood where the light fractured through broken windows and listened to the city hum. Cars passing, water moving, life continuing without him. Marcus arrived with 2 men and a smile that never learned kindness. "You came alone," he said, impressed. "I always do," Cairo replied. Marcus gestured for the men to wait. "You made this difficult," he said. "But difficulty sharpens outcomes." "I'm done," Cairo said. "Leave her alone." Marcus tilted his head. "That depends." Cairo took a breath. "Take me instead." Marcus laughed, short and surprised. "You think this is noble?" "I think it's over," Cairo said. Marcus stepped closer. "It ends when I say." What happened next was fast and irreversible. Words turned to motion. A gun appeared where it hadn't been a moment before. The echo swallowed the space. Cairo fell with a sound that did not match the weight of the moment. Marcus stared, stunned by his own speed. One of the men swore. Sirens began to rise somewhere far away, a sound that meant nothing and everything. Marcus ran. Cowards always do. Cairo lay still, the ceiling blurring into a pale abstraction. Pain flared and then softened, like a hand letting go. He thought of the river, of rain on glass, of Amara's laugh under the awning. He tried to hold on to her name and found it waiting for him, bright and whole. Amara knew before the call ended. Some truths announced themselves in the pause before words. She dropped the phone and ran, heart pounding, breath tearing at her ribs. She reached the warehouse as the police sealed it, lights painting grief across the concrete. Daniel tried to stop her. She slipped past. They let her see him because there was nothing left to protect. She knelt beside Cairo and took his hand, warm and cooling all at once. "I'm here," she whispered, as if arrival could undo absence. His eyes opened, just enough. He smiled, just enough. "You're safe," he said, voice thin as paper. Stay, she begged. He shook his head, almost imperceptibly. Live. The word settled between them like a blessing and a wound. His breath left and did not return. The city exhaled. Days passed in a fog that refused to lift. Marcus was caught trying to leave town, his confidence dissolving into panic. The trial would come later. Justice would arrive late, like it always did. None of it mattered to Amara in the way people expected. The funeral was small. Rain came anyway. Vivian stood beside Amara, two women stitched together by loss. Daniel held his sister and learned a new definition of helpless. Father Gabriel spoke of courage and sacrifice. Amara heard none of it. She watched the casket lower and thought of how love can be both anchor and current. Afterward, Amara returned to the bookstore awning. The boards were gone, the windows open again. She pressed her palm to the glass and laughed, softly, like a secret shared with the rain. She began to draw, buildings first, then people, then a man with kind eyes who taught her how to breathe. She kept the letter when it arrived weeks later, forwarded by a neighbor who found it under the door. She read it once and put it away, not because it hurt, but because it was alive. Some things deserve distance to keep their power. Life did not become easier. It became truer. Amara learned to love the ache as proof that what she had was real. She spoke Cairo's name often, letting it echo until it felt like a companion instead of a loss. Years later, she would tell the story without drama, without heroes. Just two people who loved and chose and paid. The city would keep moving. The river would keep flowing. And somewhere, in the margins of a book, a confession would wait for the next reader. Before this story ends, please like, comment, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive, reaching hearts that need them most. Even when love ends, its echo deserves to be heard.